Many people think that getting fit and healthy and strong in your 40s or your 50s takes endless hours in the gym and it's an uphill struggle. But the truth is that you can make fantastic progress with just 4 hours of structured training per week. Now in this video, I'm going to give you the exact framework that I use with my clients to help them build their strength, build their fitness, and stay healthy without it taking over their lives. So the biggest constraint after 40 isn't necessarily a lack of motivation. It's, your job is taking over more of your life. As you progress up your career ladder, you maybe take on more responsibility, and that takes a little bit more time to get the job done. Maybe you take home work in the evenings or the weekends, or even some people have been known to work whilst they're on holidays, which is obviously a crazy thing. But family commitments, they increase as you get older as well, and you become your son or daughter's taxi, driving them everywhere. And also, your free time just seems to disappear. So if a new sparkly training routine takes, 6 or 7 hours a week, then it is highly unlikely that you're going to be able to make that happen. Not because you don't want to, but where are you actually going to find that amount of time in your week, especially when you're working or dealing with family issues, or the general lack of time that holding everything together at our age takes. Now, what I've found that works incredibly well is the 4-hour structured training per week. That includes 2 hours of strength training and 2 hours of cardio per week. And it's enough to stimulate a response so that you make an adaptation, you get stronger and fitter, but it's also enough time that you can actually recover properly from each of your sessions. Now, that recovery includes being able to take into account whether or not you work late, or you've got client dinners, or you have to get up early in the morning, or you've got family issues. So it's not as simple as just perhaps it was in your 20s, where you can really beast yourself in the gym and you only have yourself that you're responsible for. And so you can do everything you can to recover and before you hit the gym again. Now, at this stage of your life, you've probably got more people dependent on you turning up with 100% enthusiasm and capability at work or at home. So recovery needs to include all of that. Now, this structured 4 hours per week also includes a couple of extra things, such as trying to get 10,000 steps per day. Your nutrition needs to be simple and effective, hydration, and also regulating your alcohol consumption too. Now, it's a cool philosophical term that's been bandied around quite a lot, and that is minimum effective dose. And I truly try my best to embrace that, because I embrace the lazy side of training. And essentially all it means is that you're doing the bare minimum to get the job done. So what you're looking for is enough work to stimulate a response, the adaptation, and you can see that getting stronger and fitter and all of that. And it also gives you enough time to recover afterwards. So I think you could use another analogy like a suntan or getting calluses on your hand. So calluses on your hand, the skin builds up and gives you a kind of a protective, thicker layer of skin. If you don't do enough, nothing happens. And if you do too much, well, then you end up with blisters. So we're looking for that balance, and that's the difference between fitness and training being an art or a science. So yes, we can scientifically do all of the programming and try and get that right, but ultimately we are humans, and it needs to be balanced within the constraints of each of our individual lives. And so if we can't recover from our training sessions, then we're unlikely to make much progress, and also we're less likely to want to stick to the program in any case. Something that I've found really useful is having a goal. There's nothing worse than turning up to the gym or getting up really early in the morning to get to the gym, and you may have motivation at the start and it's all shiny and new and you're really enthusiastic about your program and you're buying into it and you really want to get started with it. But after a few weeks, that can seem a little bit tedious, and the relentless nature of having to turn up, 3 or 4 days a week, that it becomes difficult. And so one of the ways to make that a little bit more palatable is to have a reason to actually do it. So I love the idea of the Couch to 5K, or having a fitness event such as a half marathon or a 5K or a high rocks event. Seem to be very popular at the moment, and people are doing incredible amounts of training getting ready for these high rocks events. And ultimately, it's a bit cliched, and I keep using this phrase, but the purpose of having a goal isn't just to actually achieve the outcome, but it is to help you step into the kind of person that would accomplish that goal. And I think that's a really valuable lesson for us all. So we become the kind of person that would achieve that fitness goal. And that is, why I like goals so much. Now, this is something that really gets on my nerves. We have the science-based or evidence-based training that tells you need to follow strength curves, and you need to have your benches set up at the exact angle to stimulate the muscle fibers of the upper chest. And if you don't have elastic bands following this strength curve, well, you might as well not have shown up at the gym at all. And so what this kind of does is makes, apart from it being overly complicated and tedious and just bloody annoying, it is very hard to stick with a program that would be that detailed and that rigorous and that pedantic, for want of a better word. So another analogy I would use is gyms. So you could have the perfect gym, and it is, I don't know, say it's 45 minutes away, or the mediocre gym that is 5 minutes away. And I would always choose and encourage you to choose the gym that's mediocre, that's 5 minutes away, because trust me, there will be mornings or evenings or time where your day seems to belong to everybody else, and you just can't make that trip to the 45-minute gym. But the 5-minute gym is a lot more feasible, and it leaves you with less excuses. Okay, it's 5 minutes away.
A lot of you are trying to find inspiration and motivation with a depressed mindset. You're depressed because you're not doing shit with yourself. You don't find inspiration by not living in the grip of life. You need to live in the grip of life to find inspiration. Put challenges in front of yourself. When you put a challenge in front of yourself and you attack it, that's when you find
the perfect gym that is far away is always a better strategy for adherence. And it's the same with the perfect programs. Having the perfect program is great, but in real life, nothing's perfect. And having a mediocre program that you can stick to is going to trump the perfect program that you do sporadically or end up doing, not at all. A missing piece that I see with many programs is testing. And so if you are going to stick to a program, get up early in the morning, put your faith in a trainer and pay him big money to come and train with them, then you really want to know whether or not that training program is effective and it's working and you're progressing. So how do you do that? You initiate tests. So ideally, you would have testing at the outset of a block of training and testing at the end. And they should be obviously easy to implement and easy to repeat. And then you can actually see whether or not you're making progress. So it could be really super simple things like how many press-ups can you do in a minute? It could be a 5K time. It could be your high rocks time, but you get the idea. So some form of test. Now, how frequently should you do this? I think the intervals should be at least 3 months. So you have time to build up a little bit of momentum and get used to a program and make progress from it before you retest. And this is something that I think many programs miss out on. And I think it's especially relevant for people, for people like you out there, if you are investing in a trainer or somebody like me, then you should be getting your value for money. If you have a specific outcome that you have in mind, then this sort of testing along the way can help you figure out whether you're achieving it or whether you need to change your course along the way to achieve the outcome that you want. Running alongside testing, I think another thing that's really useful is wearables. And now I go overboard. I've got two. I've got an Apple Watch and a Whoop. And whilst they are not infallible, they are what we would call directionally accurate. So if it shows that your resting heart rate is rising or decreasing, then you can assume that that's relatively correct. And same even with your VO2 max, it may give you an indication of whether it's rising or it's decreasing. Now, if you want a thoroughly accurate measurement, I suggest you invest in getting a VO2 max test done officially. I've done so a couple of times, and I believe in the process so much that I actually bought the system myself, and I now offer VO2 max testing, which is lab grade test. The beauty about this is that it gives you your VO2 max, which is kind of like the glamorous figure that everybody wants to have, but also gives you your VT1, your VT2, which are a proxy for your lactate 1, your aerobic threshold, and your anaerobic threshold. These are really useful figures for you to implement in your training to get cardiovascular fitter. And this sort of aligns with my training in that not every day has to be a hard day. You need to implement training that is a little bit more specific. So not every day needs to put you on the floor. That is not the best way to train, neither for progressing or for longevity. Now, everybody kind of buys into nutrition as the way to make progress in your 40s and 50s. And I wholeheartedly agree. But I think it's far too bloody complicated. And you have so much stuff out there, biohacking, you have Ozempics and Mounjaros, we have intermittent fasting and all sorts of diets and nutrition protocols. Now, some of the simplest things to do with your nutrition is, one is find out what you're eating on a daily basis. What are you actually consuming? That is probably ground zero. And if you don't have an accurate record of what you're eating, because whatever you're eating equals this version of you. And so if you can get that accurate, at least then you know ground zero, increased calories or lower calories from a place of knowledge rather than just guessing. And the second thing, I suppose, is that in terms of your diet, if you are looking to regulate your weight or perhaps lose a bit of weight, then I think the simplest thing to do is have very similar meals. Now, obviously, I want you to get a variety of different fruit and veg and different kinds of meat and proteins and all the rest of it. But you can do that over the course of a week without going crazy. Now, I eat the same breakfast every day, pretty much the same lunch, and only really my dinner changes. And then this just makes things so much simpler in terms of decision fatigue. I don't have to think about my breakfast. I just know what it is. I know for lunch I'm going to have eggs with some form of bread. I've started baking my own bread, which is a nice hobby for me, but also I know what's actually going into the bread that I eat. And then dinner can be any sort of combination of, some sort of protein and vegetables. This isn't the video to go down the rabbit hole of nutrition, but what I want you to think about is the more layers of complexity you have between you and your nutrition, the more it's much more difficult to stick to and to actually understand. The simplest form of nutrition would be to eat when you're hungry and to stop eating when you're no longer hungry. Now, because of the way we live our lives, that has become very, very difficult to do. And those layers of complexity in terms of, what we should be eating, when we should be eating it, and our abilities to graze has really mucked up our signals to do with being able to identify when we're truly hungry, not bored, and when we are actually satiated rather than so stuffed I have to undo a few buttons on my trousers and take my belt off before I explode. Anyway, they're my simple views on simple nutrition. So if you're over 40 and you're struggling to find the time for fitness, remember, you don't need to find the perfect plan. You need a repeatable structure that fits around your life. So a couple of hours of strength training, a couple of hours of cardio, and some simple nutrition. Repeat that consistently for a year. And can you imagine where you would be? Now, if you're not sure where your current capacity is, I've built a short capacity code quiz that helps you identify where the constraints are in your fitness and training life. And if you'd like to take it, it's free and it takes about 3 minutes. You'll find the link below in the description. Okay guys, that's it for today. Hope this helps.